Mailbag time again. Don't know what's in these. Let's find out. Really hope this mailbag's better than the last one. Didn't have very good stuff in the last one until I got to the very end of it. Hopefully this is better. Wow. There's a lot in there. Little devices. Now these are some TCXOs. And they should be 25 megahertz. I hope they are. It says 5 pieces, which is correct. Yeah, 25 on there. Excellent. Now I've got these to go with these things which I showed in a previous mailbag, which I've still got sitting on my desk. Because I recorded that mailbag, I don't know, about 20 minutes ago. And these are some like DDS type generator things. It's got 3 outputs on them and they've got crystals on them, but they are just crystals. Showed this in the previous mailbag, so go back and check that out. I think it's like 2 mailbags ago. I saw someone using these things on a CB radio conversion. So there you go, it was the SI5351, is it? I can't, but anyway. But you can program these things between those frequencies, and it can run from 3.3 to 5 volts. Obviously, this is using I2C to communicate with a microcontroller to program it. But you've got the outputs on them, which is these pads down the bottom, and you can do potentially conversions to CB radios using a microcontroller and bypass all the existing oscillators and stuff like that and just generate your own. Anyway, that's what I got these oscillators for. I saw someone else using these devices on a channel. I've forgotten their channel name. I'll probably link it down below or something if I remember. Or if he's watching, please comment. He does lots of CB radio conversions in Australia, and he does some quite interesting stuff. Overkill CB, was it? Something like that. He uses these boards on conversions. I didn't really know about them until I saw him using them. I thought, that's not a bad idea. I mean, I built my own stuff years ago and made my own versions, but modern technology is far better than what I used to make. These TCXO modules will go on these boards to replace the crystals. Now, I've got 10 of those boards, I think. I thought, that's plenty. I'm not even likely to even use many of them. I might only use 1 or 2 ever. I'm not likely to use 10. And I've got 5 TCXOs to go with them, just in case. Yeah, that's what those are for. That is a very long first piece. I'll put links down below for any items I have here, if I can. So check those out below if you see anything you're interested in. So, little USB number keypad. Now this is for my wife for her computer. Unfortunately it's USB-A, not USB-C. But that's right, number keypad, because her new computer's got a number keypad on it. But it's horrendous. It's not using a standard format. It's narrower. But you know, this is a standard keyboard layout, right, for number keypad. The one on her computer is like made skinnier. It's made narrower. So it's literally that wide. And the plus is up here or something, and it's just, yeah, the 0 is smaller. It's just a weird layout. It's awful. It's one of those things you get used to using, but when you're using other keyboards as well, going backwards and forwards between the two is a pain. A little number keyboard, so she can plug this into a computer and use this like you would do normally without having to think about it anymore. The weird thing is this computer where this number keyboard is, it's big enough to have a proper one. Actually, my wife's brought it over, she can show you. There's the keyboard. And as you can see, it's all scrunched up over here. It's a really narrow format. It's not a standard layout. You know, compare it against this one. Right, this is the normal size, normal layout. Right, so you know, why couldn't they have something like that there? And you can see how wide this is. Right, could have easily been made wider and accommodated a standard size number keypad in a standard format. So this is awful. It's an Asus Vivo book. That's my wife. I'm sure she'll be happy. This time.
Yay.
Maybe.
Can I have it now, please?
What?
The keypad.
Oh. No. I'm still recording video. And here is another version, which is wireless. USB-A dongle, useful. Let's do it this way, okay? No. So again, standard size, but it's also got these extra keys here, which the new computer doesn't really have. So it's actually slightly better. There's different versions of this. I did actually see a version which actually had a screen on it as well. I'm quite sure how useful that is. This doesn't have a storage place, which would have been nice if it had a little storage place on it. There's probably room. But it's just Bluetooth, obviously. And it's also got USB-C charging on it, and you've got a switch there to turn the thing on and off. Doesn't say which way's on, which way's off, but you know, that's useful. I'm guessing that's a pairing button or something just there. So the choice is one or the other. And it does have instructions. It's right inside, nothing, a bit cardboard. So it does have some instructions on it, which is in Chinese, so win-win. Oh no, there's some English in there, great. As the computer has Bluetooth in it, you probably don't even need the dongle. it'll probably just go straight onto it and work. Hopefully, you never quite know, dear. You might find that this will work as a Bluetooth keyboard, but it will disable the rest of the keyboard because it's got a keyboard connected now. That sort of thing happens, doesn't it? Anyway, yeah, so two options now. You've got the wireless one and a wired one. Yeah. I don't know, is this better than the last mailbag? I don't know, probably not. I might just record this just in case it's necessary, because these instructions tell you how to configure the keyboard and use special functions which aren't obvious because it's not actually marked on the keyboard, for like using different functions on it to reconfigure it and repair it. So at least if it's in this video, I stand a slight chance of actually finding it in the future. Maybe. And as usual, I didn't get carried away, because you always need a spare. Something U green apparently. It's another iPhone cable. USB-C to lightning cable from U-Green. Yeah, another non-exciting thing. I'm not going to open it. I did a couple of cables in the last mailbags. I might have got carried away there. Maybe I did actually, just a little bit. Wife is just laughing at me looking at this box trying to figure out how to get into it. Yeah. If you're trying to figure out how to get into the box. Completely over the top of here. And we've got a box inside a box. Double boxed. Not a box or a cat. 12 volt, 8 amp hour LiFePO4 battery. 10 amp max output current. Apparently. Built-in BMS. Don't know what the maximum charging current was. Shouldn't really matter anyway for the device I'm going to be using this on. Now these I actually wish were slightly better spec than they are, but this is what you get. Now these are good for like things like UPSs and things like that, for small devices which have very low loading. If you just want to back up in case of a power outage on something which runs like a network switch, or maybe an NVR or some PoE security cameras, that kind of thing. Something which has got quite low loading. Maybe a laptop you might get away with it, but nothing with high drain, because let's say 10 amps maximum on this thing, maximum. So, you know, halve that for continuous basically, I suppose. 5 to 6 amps continuous probably, might even say in here. So I've used a couple of these batteries or batteries like this in another UPS, and it's worked really well. It's been far better than any gel batteries I've ever had. I mean, these batteries are more expensive and they can't produce as much current generally, and you have to be more careful with them, but my experience so far has been very positive. In future I'm going to be getting these sorts of batteries in these devices for UPSs, as long as they're only low currents, things like low loads that are on them. Like I've got one over here sitting in the corner of the desk here. That is likely where this is going to end up being. Now I've replaced that battery probably every 2 years. This battery, if it's any good, don't know, should last up to 10 years. So although it's twice the price of a SLA battery, long term it's cheaper if it lasts that long, which I expect it will. This is only running some of my stuff on my benches, like one of my test gear, my shelving here, and that sort of stuff. And that's purely there as a buffer, so at least none of my gear is plugged directly into the mains, it's all plugged in through this UPS here. So that's helping protect the gear from surges. It also gives it like a chance to have a soft power down. You know, if I do get an outage, I've got a chance to turn things off if I need to, that sort of thing. This dies very quickly when there's a power outage. Initially when I put a new battery in, it might last 10 minutes before it dies. And this is now lasting about 2 minutes. So that battery is, you know, almost dead again. I only put that one in about a year ago. I've done videos putting a battery in it before and doing that thing. And so I want to put this in it. I think I did a video about putting these in a different UPS. I think I did, but that took 2 batteries. And there's a larger one, and that runs a bit more gear. And that's working really well. That's working perfectly. I don't have to touch it anymore. It just works now. I don't have to mess around with it. If you get an outage, it comes back to life by itself and that sort of stuff. As soon as it puts a little bit of charge current out, pops back into life because the BMS re-enables and that sort of stuff. I used to go up there manually, turn it on, try and force it to boot up because the gel cells, or the SLA batteries, you know, when they reload, couldn't even produce enough current to even turn the UPS back on again properly. And it'd be a bit of a struggle to get the thing boot back up again sometimes. And since I put the LiFePO4s in there, not been a problem. It's been perfect. Worthwhile upgrade. Now, like I said, the only limitation is you can't draw too much current from these things, and that could be a limitation for you depending on what you're using the things for. But in this case, I think it'll be fine. It's not running much. It's like running my USB charger here and say my test gears on my shelving. And most of the time, this stuff is just on standby, sitting here doing nothing, using very little power. It's there to protect that, really. That's what it's for. Anyway, That's a waffle about a battery, isn't it? Which we'll see how that goes. I might do it this weekend, maybe. I might pull it apart and put that in there. Like I said, the battery is not doing very well right now. I don't think it's dead yet, but it's getting close.
I'm not dead. What? I'm not dead. He says he's not dead. Yes, he is.
Now this package is making some interesting noises. Slightly concerning. Multifunctional dismantling screen rotation fixture. That's a mouthful.
Sounds dismantled.
Okay, so this is like a rubber grip that goes in there, which is obviously falling out. Put it back in. So this is for doing screen repairs on phones. So you can actually put it in here. This has got like a bit of a convoluted mechanism here for doing all sorts of stuff, but you can adjust the widths. And it's also got this attachment here for doing the screen. Now normally I do a phone, I just have my pan device stood up next to the phone and like basically stand the screen up and just prop it in between the jaws. It's not 100% great way of doing it. You've got some more suction cups here. Got this one here which is actually used for removing the screen, so you put that on there. And then you can use this to suction onto the screen in some way. You know, basically do that, leave it down, it pulls the suction onto the screen, and then you can lift the screen up. And also this can do both directions. Yeah, widthways only in this case. So if you've got a screen which folds up sideways, you'd do that to hinge it up, you know. And you've got these smaller suction cups here which you can pop in like this if you don't have that in the way. And then you can use that to hold the screen in place whilst you're working on the phone, you know, dismantling it and what have you. That's what it's for. Quite a chunky system. A bit more professional what I was using. And what's this thing here? So another screw which is used for something. I have to figure that out. But you can screw it down to a bench. It's got slots there so you can bolt it down. And obviously this whole mechanism spins around as well, and you can lock that up in some way as you get adjusted down. I think you can just do it, tighten it up, then maybe leave it. Yeah, that locks it in place so it doesn't spin around, so it gives you the chance to spin it around and work on it. So obviously it's a bit more of a professional tool than what I'd normally be doing. So you can jack this up for that part. Yeah, that's what that's for. So when you've got that there, you can jack up the screen to lift it in a controlled way rather than just trying to pull it. If you're jacking up, you're doing it in a really controlled way, it's really fine, and it's gradually lifting it. If you're trying to yank on it, it could suddenly go and then you rip flexes and all sorts of stuff. So yeah, nice. That feels like a nice quality piece of gear. Wasn't cheap, but now I've got one. And people that don't do iPhones and stuff like that, this is probably really boring and uninteresting. And a lot of people probably aren't interested in this sort of thing at all. So sorry about that if you're one of those people. But this sort of thing you need sometimes when you fix things like I do. And I'm not necessarily doing test gear, which is what I really like to do, is test gear. And, you know, do the videos about that. But sometimes I'm fixing broken phones. And this is all about, actually, fixing my broken phone. Of course, I fell on it. Had a little accident. Fell out of the motorhome, landed on the phone, slightly bent it, cracked the screen. And so I'm getting the bits and pieces I need together to pull that thing apart and fix it up. And it still works fine, but I need to sort of fix it. So I've got the screen, I've got the programmers for programming the screen onto it so I can copy the codes over and that sort of stuff, hopefully. I don't know if it'll work or not. Most people aren't interested in that, so I'm not going to be doing videos about that, I don't think. Maybe I will, maybe I won't, because I've never done an iPhone 13 before, so it could be a disaster. Could show you how not to do it. Other videos to watch down below there, other stuff to watch, other links down there for the products I've shown you here. If anything interests you, go and check those out. Subscribe over here if you want to subscribe. Hopefully more videos come out which are more interested in this one. And there's a Patreon support link over there to help me to buy bits of test gear to do videos about, which is what I'd rather be doing. Rather than making mailbags, I'd be fixing stuff. Anyway, catch you later.